That flight was expected to land shortly after 10 o'clock, but it did.
Begin with breaking news on the Ethiopian Airlines crash.
Jet with 157
breaking news, an Ethiopian Airlines flight.
Ethiopian 77, runway 23 right, turn left.
I think about the last 6 minutes a lot. My wife and my mom-in-law knew they were going to die. They had to somehow comfort the children during those final moments, knowing they were all their last. I wish I was there with them.
Flight 8302 Addis Ababa to Nairobi was to be the last one for aircraft registration number ET-AVJ. An aircraft that had been delivered to Ethiopian Airlines less than 4 months earlier on November 17, 2018. It was part of a 5-aircraft fleet of Boeing's latest technology. And on the morning of 10th March 2019, the captain on board was Kenyan-Ethiopian Gituku, aged 29. Investigation report by Ethiopian authorities shows Gituku had logged 8,122 hours flying. He had flown Boeing 737 series for 1,417 hours. On the actual 737 MAX aircraft that caused his death, he had flown for 103 hours. By international standards, he was an experienced pilot fit to fly an international flight. In a recent advertisement for captains by the Kenya Airways, pilots interested in becoming captains were required to have logged at least 4,000 hours, including 2,000 hours commanding an aircraft of over 15 tons. The 737 MAX 8 is over 70 tons in weight, qualified as per standards of the Federal Aviation Administration of the U.S. Airlines for over 2 years and had worked as a pilot with the same airline all his professional career. The first officer on the flight has been described by aviation experts as inexperienced. He was 25-year-old Ahmed Nur Mohammed. He had logged a total of 361 hours, of which 207 had been in Boeing 737 type aircrafts. On the ill-fated 737 MAX model, Mohammed had flown for 56 hours, making him considerably inexperienced. Both the captain and first officer had the prerequisite accreditation to fly a 737 MAX, a new aircraft of the Boeing 737 series. The aircraft ET-AVJ had in its 4 months since delivery flown for 1,330 hours. It had taken off and landed 382 times by the time of the accident. It had a total seating capacity of 160. By the time of the accident, 157 were on board. In December 2018, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau preliminary report shows the aircraft had been maintained for erratic airspeed and altitude fluctuations. Since then, there had been no recurrence. On the 3rd of December 2018, the aircraft had experienced rapid movement up and down and back to normal momentarily. Upon checking, no fault was found. It's Sunday morning, the 10th of March 2019. The time is 8:37:34 seconds Kenyan time. Captain Gituku and his first officer, Ahmed Nur Mohammed, have rested for several hours. The captain had not flown for 3 days, while the first officer had been in a flight for only 5 hours, 25 minutes in 3 days before the flight. They have just received clearance for takeoff from the air traffic control of the Bole International Airport of Addis Ababa. Everything is normal and the aircraft lifts at 8:38 a.m. 44 seconds later, just after liftoff, trouble begins. The angle of attack sensors on the left and right display different figures. The angle of attack is loosely described as the climbing angle. The left stick shaker activates. This is a mechanical device in the cockpit that rapidly and noisily vibrates the control wheel, indicating an imminent stall of the aircraft. A stall occurs when a plane does not have enough lift to keep it climbing or cruising. At this time, the anti-stall system referred as MCAS kicked in and pushed the nose of the aircraft downwards for 9 seconds. A warning of "don't sink" sounds in the cockpit. In the next few seconds, the two pilots strive to control the airplane with little success. At 8:38:58 seconds, the captain calls out "command," a standard call for autopilot engagement. 2 seconds later, the pilot calls out again "command" to engage the autopilot mode, which is effected a second later. They are to briefly resume climbing. The MCAS system pushes the nose down again, triggering most squawks of "don't sink." At 8:39, 6 seconds, Captain Gituku advises the first officer to contact the air traffic control, which the officer does, reporting a turnback. 16 seconds later, the left autopilot is engaged, only to disengage 33 seconds later. The pilots make further efforts to control the air traffic, and at 8:39, 45 seconds, the captain requests the first officer for flap-ups. This is intended at flying the aircraft at a greatly reduced speed with a lower risk of stalling. Should an aircraft stall, meaning unable to keep the lift, it increases the drag, a backward pulling force. An aircraft can fall down like a rock. The aircraft now loses altitude and the crisis is becoming more serious. At 8:39, 29 seconds, radar identifies ET302 and gives instructions that the pilots climb and, when able, take a right turn back to runway. The first officer acknowledges. At 8:39, 57 seconds, the captain advises the first officer again to request to maintain runway heading and to communicate to radar, quote, "We are having flight control problems," end of quote. At 8:40, after the autopilot has disengaged, the flight digital recorder recorded an automatic aircraft nosedive that activated for 9 seconds. At 8:40, 44 seconds, the captain calls out, "Pull up," 3 times. The first officer acknowledges as both attempt to gain altitude. At this time, the captain wants the first officer to request the air traffic control to allow them maintain an altitude of 14,000 feet, while also emphasizing they're having flight control problems. The plane is now moving at extremely high speed, beyond the red line of 390 miles per hour, equivalent to 627 kilometers per hour, so much so that the left overspeed warning activates. It remains active until the end of the recording. At 8:41, 46 seconds, the captain asks the first officer if the trim was functional. Trim is a device that enables maintenance of a certain altitude. The first officer responds that the trim is not working and offers to try it manually. The captain asking the officer to try. 8 seconds later, the first officer responds that the trim is not functional. At 8:42, 10 seconds, the captain asks the first officer to request a vector to return, which the air traffic control approves. They are instructed 20 seconds later to turn right, heading 260 degrees. The first officer acknowledges. At 8:42, 43 seconds, in the hope of controlling the flight, the pilots change selected heading to 262 degrees. The plane is still dipping. At 5:43, 4 seconds, the captain asks his co-pilot to pitch up together, meaning to attempt climb the plane. They do so, but the captain retorts that lift is not enough. At 8:43, 11 seconds, just half a minute to the end of the flight, the aircraft is at approximately 13,402 feet. 2 momentary manual electric trim inputs are recorded in the aircraft nose-up direction. The flight stabilizer moves in the direction of nose-up, just not enough. At 8:43, 20 seconds, the flight control system MCAS automatically activates an aircraft nose down. The aircraft pitches nose down, that is so fast, reaching 40 degrees nose down. The left indicated airspeed increases, reaching 458 knots, equivalent to 848 kilometers an hour. The right indicated an airspeed of 500 knots, equivalent to 926 kilometers per hour. Experts opine it would take a miracle to control such a flight with so low altitude to navigate. The aircraft crashed into bare earth, digging a 30-meter depression.
Console the families that have been affected here, Lord. So, Lord, we thank you for everything.
In the second and final part of ET302, I tell you of the case of victims against the Boeing company in the US. Sam Gituku, Citizen TV.